On today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about how I go through the selections, the specifications, the pricing phase into the contract phase to help you go from the initial contact to a building contract faster. Enjoy. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. My name's Max, I'm your host. Good to have you with us today. Look, if you've been with me for the longest time, appreciate you hanging in there. And if this is your first time, I really hope that you get something out of this episode. As usual, like and subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. If you want to check out what I do with business coaching, shoot across to elitebusinessadvisory.com. And that'll be the place you can sort of get to know me a little bit more. And what I offer general contractors as far as business coaching. Don't forget Business for Builders VIP on Facebook. Answer the 3 questions. If you're a good sort, I will let you in. But other than that, I think we'll get cracking on today's episode. As you can see behind me, if you're on YouTube, if you're driving down the road, at the gym, on the treadie, doing what you do, you may not be able to see that unless we got a video. I think we got if you're on Spotify, I think we got videos happening, maybe. But anyway, you'll see on the whiteboard behind me, we're going to talk today about going from that initial contact right through to contract. And it's funny, every one of my elite business advisory coaching clients always tells me that they have no problems building it. But, we can build it in good time. It's very predictable. The challenge is from contact to contract. That's kind of always the challenge. It's like, I think that a lot of guys fumble with it, or they spend a lot of time working out what they should do and how they should do it. Now, if you're in standard new, let's say you're doing project homes, where it's very similar, each project is very similar, then there'll be a high level of predictability, which will make that sales process a lot simpler. Whereas if you're in renovations and you're doing jobs from bathrooms to second story additions, then what you're going to find is you're going to have to create systems, sales processes for each of those projects. You will definitely, for $1 million, renovation, you're going to definitely need a pre-construction agreement because there's so much work to be done. But for a bathroom, you can expedite that quote and pretty much move them into a proposal at least. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly chat. And this has really come about because we are working on a $1 million project at the moment. And we've done a bunch of small jobs, some mediocre jobs, but this one is definitely going to be a bit of a jewel in the crown. And so, for me, working through the sales process, because talking to my business partner, Jed, obviously, we get fired up about ripping the roof off and, getting cracking on the actual second story addition. But where there can be some gray area, and certainly as I talk to Jed about what I'm doing, it's all just like witchcraft and sorcery. It's like, I have no idea why you do what you do. So, that's the project that I've got in the back of my mind that I'm thinking of as I put this together, because it's like, right, what do I do? How can I help the audience? How can I create some value to enable you to move through the process? So, I think it's important for us builders to understand that we've got to move away from the I'm a practitioner, I'm a technician, I'm a carpenter, that sort of thing. Because you can't really, if you say, I'm so good on the tools, unless you've got someone, like I've got a situation with a business partner where, I don't necessarily need to be on site because Jed is so good. He's a great quality control, does a great job on the site. That makes my job to do sales and project management a lot simpler. And he doesn't really worry about what I do. So we've got a pretty happy medium. Now, there could be, you and your life partner that work in the business, similar, but not quite the same, because obviously, your wife may not be the carpenter, but she could be the salesperson, or whatever the case may be for you. So, I've just sort of started saying of late that this is, I think if you're going to do anything over $1.5 million to 2 million, it's too much business for one guy. Now, if you've got deep enough pockets, you can put some team together, okay? But if you don't, you're going to struggle to scale up the business until you create some expansion capital, which is separate to your operational capital. Right. So for the sake of time, let's get cracking. So what's important to me, when I first had a phone call with this client, I really want to understand the scope. Obviously, these are steps that I would take in lead management, okay? It's not an exhaustive list, but it's a good start, right? So a couple of things. I want to define the scope. I want to understand the location. This job is about 48 minutes away from my office. If it wasn't the kind of job that it was, in other words, the scope, then the location, if it was for a $10,000 deck or something like that, yeah, I'm probably, based on the scope and the location, that's going to go against it. Okay, but because it's a little bit bigger project, it does have its, it's a serious lead for me. Okay, and then the lead source. We've always got to find out, because remember, we're professional business operators, and so we're always going to be focused on our CPL, our CAC, and our ROAS. We need to know where we're getting the majority of our leads, so we can continue to invest in that marketing, that marketing vertical to keep the top of funnel full. Okay. Second thing is, I've got to understand their expectations around timelines and around dollars. So the two standouts on the project that we are going to move into contract in the next 30 to 60 days was that it's got to be started in September, finished in May, and my budget's $1 million. And I'm like, okay, so far so good. This is good. This is good. You know what? And, I think there's trust and chemistry, and I've talked about this before. If you're in a rock and roll band, you've got to be able to trust the other guy or gal, and you kind of got to be able to have some fun off the stage as well, because it is work. It's essentially another business, right? So, having the chemistry, so I've got to like the person and like the job. So they're my three qualifiers. If I like the job, like the person, and they're willing to talk about money, then I'm like, all right, this is showing some good signs. Now, this last one here is compliance. Funny, overnight, 2 nights ago, I had a lead come in, and I sent a welcome email out of JobTread, and the idea would be to hit the green button and reply. Now, what this individual did is they stepped outside of that email and went and started another boring old email thread. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, I get you. You're going to be the bossy boots type. You're going to want to try to run me. And so what I did is, that to me is a lack of compliance. See, these are red flags that I'm looking for, because I need to know whether I can trust the person and whether I'm going to get on with the person. Some builders just go with the flow, don't care. I like to keep my shit organized. Okay. And so if you don't comply with how I want to interact, it goes against you. It's not an automatic dismissal, but I'm now a little bit wary, because I'm like, okay, alpha dog. I'm an alpha dog. I like to lead the show. I like to run the place. I like to take responsibility. I'm accountable. If it is to be, it's up to me. If the shit hits the fan, I got to fix it. Like all of that. So it's the good and the bad, right? There's both sides of it. So when I get somebody that steps outside those compliance zones, I start to worry. Okay, so anyway, overnight, because I sent her back another email welcoming her to the Smith & Sons project management system, and please reply, got it, and save this email as a safe sender, right? She did that. And then this morning I come into the office, and of course there's a bunch of pictures from the real estate website, and then she's red marked a few. So it's like, okay, we're actually back into compliance. See, but I've had to be aware of that, and then I've had to be able to lead that, okay, and circle back. And so, how that's going to go, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens anyway. Right. So once we've managed the lead from the initial contact, now it's a case of, where do we go? So to give you an example, I understand the timeline, understand the scope, and I've got a budget number. Okay, so that's cool. The next thing that we went to, which is not on the board, in between contact here, and what I'm going to put here in this step number 1 is going to be selections, right? But in between contact and selection, there was design. Okay, because once we got an agreement in principle, $1 million. I'm like, okay, confident we can build it for that. Then what we had to do is go and get an understanding from city or council that we can build it. Yes, we can, great. We go into concept drawings, then we go into construction drawings, and then we went into engineering. That's all being ticked. Now, right now, that project is it's in city, or it's in council, and it's currently, being analysed as far as the application is concerned. So while all that's happening now, to give you that context, okay, so we've moved through here, we've got the understanding about the scope, the budget, the timeline. We've gone through the design services. We are in city, we're in council, we're in the city. The city council is now looking at our application for a building permit. So it's like, right, that is going to be 6 to 8 weeks away. So now this is what I'm going to talk about. So this is the way I break it down in my head. And I've got to be very compartmentalized. I've got to be very, what is the next step? That's how my brain works, right? And maybe it is for you as well. So you just need to know what's the next trigger that I pull. And so this is one of the text messages that I sent to the client. I said, right, we've done all this design, it's in city, right, here's the next 4 steps. So what I'm doing is I'm leading the client. Now, I'll give you a bit of an insight. This client, this person is another alpha. And some people go, well, if you get 2 dogs in the pit, you're going to have a fight. Yes, probably, possibly. But what I do is I'm subservient to the client because the client pays my bills. So what I do is, because I understand the personality types, I listen to this guy and I go, okay, I'm not taking that personally. He just knows what he wants. And I'm here to serve that guy and that couple. And, because this is what they want. This is the kind of forever summer home, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do here, right, is we're going to talk about selections, okay? And, I was going to try and break these down, but they roll into each other so significantly. I think once you get this in your brain as far as the segments and the steps towards going to construction, because this is where we all are gangsters, I get it. I think you just know, okay, what's the next thing that I'm doing? See, the challenge that we have is sometimes we don't know how to lead ourselves. So we want to talk about the speed of the leader determines speed of the pack. It's because we're confused. So for me as a builder, I'm not confused. I kind of know exactly what's coming up next. I know what some of the verbiage is going to be around that. I know what the narrative is. I know what the objective is. See, there's an objective that we want, right? I need selections. Okay, so what's going to be some of the key results? Well, when I give them, now, in some cases, for selections, you might be working with an interior designer or you might have a designer working with your client. Okay, now, I know that would take a lot of the pressure off me, but it costs a bit of money. I've had this client say to me, well, look, my sister and I are going to want to put the selections together, or they're going to want to do the interior design. That was kind of what it was said. Understand this. Just because they do the interior design does not mean they understand how to put a selection sheet together or a shopping sheet. Okay, couple of options. You get the designer to do it. The client does it all by themselves with your selection sheet. Or what I'm considering doing in this case is, because this is not their principal place of residence but a summer home, I think that we don't need to go to the premium or luxury. We're certainly going to stay away from like the essentials or the entry level. But in the middle, I think that there is enough product in and around the local hardware that I can really expedite the shop, okay? So what I'm getting at is we've got a Home Depot 10 minutes from the office. And so what we're going to do is I am going to build the selection sheet first. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get online and I'm going to go shopping. And I'm going to go, right, that's the wiser door handle for that. This is the type of door cabinet, type of door we're having on the interior doors. They're going to be up to 32-inch doors. And I'm going to go through, because they've given us a bit of an understanding of their palette, which is important, right? Both exterior and interior, okay? So I'm going to go so I've got to sit down and build that selection sheet, customized for the job. Yes, I've got a template, but there's a lot of stuff that's not relevant. Now we're renovating a main floor and then we're doing a 2nd-story addition, okay? And that's going to be 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a media room, and an office upstairs, okay? So I've got to think about the project and the spaces and what we're going to do. Now, side note, the challenge with this project is definitely the structural component, because we're trying to work out how much of the exterior hardy plank and stucco and stacked stone we've got to pull off to, obviously if we're building above the garage, the front of the garage is going to need more bracing. So we didn't think we were going to touch a lot of the garage, but we are definitely pulling off some panels of drywall or gyprock. Okay, so and same in the basement, because obviously we're going up another 10 or 12 feet, right? Okay, so that's selection. So you can pick your poison, what is relevant. And so this is why I've got here, know your client. What we're trying to do is reduce the friction. If we get stuck in our ways and we go, this is how we do it, because we don't get to know our client, and we don't understand, or we refuse to look at what's the best way to serve the client, we're here to make it easier. This couple will be 12 hours out of town by road. They've got me and Jed in position because they know that we have a network of trade suppliers and designers, and they want to just have one-stop shop, one guy or gal to answer to, because that makes their life a lot easier. So with that in mind, I'm going, all right, I know I've got to bully them into selections because it's not my house. I can't pick it, but I've got to figure out how much work I do in and around this, okay? Now, just so you know too, there was a $5,000 pre-construction. I did give them preferred pricing. Normally it would be 1% of contract, but it was, to me, on the back end, because we're pretty certain that we're going to get the job, that was to me, it was a no-brainer. And then we're making cost plus 10% on the design services, so engineers, building applications, things like that. Okay, so the next thing, now, the reason why we've got to put the very next thing is specifications. Okay, now, selections are everything with aesthetic value. Specifications include things other than, and it includes the selections, obviously the aesthetic value, but it also includes anything else that's relevant. Anything that needs to be specified that's not on the plans. Now, in some cases, and I would probably recommend this, the specifications will supersede what is on the plan as it relates to the specifics, okay? So, you know, there's I wouldn't say there's a bit of a rush going on. Of course there is, because we've got to start construction in about 2 months, right? What are we now? July, August, September. Yeah, we've got to start construction in 2 months. I need to have that. We got about 8 weeks to go for the approval. And so we've got to make sure that sometimes along the way, the client's going to say, hey, I know it says stucco or render, acrylic render or what have you, but actually we want to change that to hardy plank. So we will make a note in the specifications, because the plans get drawn a month and a half ago. Shit changes. Right now, what's current is that we've worked on the selections. They're 95% good to go. They get embedded in the specifications, plus other things in and around. Like if there's layout changes, I might specify, you know, that we're going to redo the cabinetry, because the cabinetry this is a classic. The cabinetry we're going to reuse, but because we're putting steel beams up and we've got to get into the wall behind the kitchen, I don't think, and the rest of the place is going to be brand new, main floor, second story, and probably a repaint downstairs just to sort of make it all feel like it's new. Odds on is we're probably going to just sell that kitchen for a couple of grand and get them a new kitchen, okay? So the specifications override the selections, but the selections and the specifications work hand in hand. So when we're moving from the selection sheet, and then we help build the specifications, remember, there is no like, okay, selections are built, we're finished. Okay, specifications are built, we're finished. No, because the next step here is pricing. See, some people say to me, and look, if you're a fixed price builder and this is what you do, lump sum, then this will either confirm what you know and what you do, or it'll be a bit of a moment where a bit of an aha moment where you go, that's what's been missing. You know, I kind of do all of that, but it's not as organized into steps, and I don't know how they interface, right? And so again, we're building on this. So it's we start with the selections. That's a first. I've got to figure out what they want, because how do I start pricing, let alone build a specification sheet? Now, remember that when you put the, so look, I'll come back to that. Pricing. So once I've got all of the selections and the specifications built, and I know what I'm doing, that's where I can start to do pricing. So, I think that, to me, I'm going to send out the specifications, go and do a bit of hand holding, talk to them about how I think we might be able to do it, right? And then set them on their way, report in every, at least once a week, if not twice. Make sure that this is on track, because I've got a timeline. I will say to them, look, in the next 2 weeks, I need to confirm the selections. End of story. I will then have gaps in my specification, which I'll be slowly filling up with the selections, right? As well as, at the same time, working on the pricing and adding and filling in the gaps in my pricing, in my line items, my items and components within my categories inside my estimate. Because what I'm doing is I'm pushing for the piece de resistance, which is a contract. So everything is building up to this. Now, essentially the pricing, really we're talking about pricing and proposal. Okay, and a lot of this is going to result in some negotiation, because there's going to be some backwards and forwards. if I go and put it together a proposal and it's 1.15 million or something, it's 150 grand over their expectation. I've got some work to do. I got to figure out why that happened and how I'm going to translate to the client, because they're going to push back and we're not going to get to contract. So this is another thing. It's like, as I'm, waiting for them on selections, building the specifications, putting my pricing together, that is going to sort of give me some indication as I move forward how I'm going to be when I hit this proposal. Are we going to go into hardcore negotiation, or is the segue from final pricing into proposal into contract going to be pretty smooth? I can tell you right now, if I come back at 950 plus tax, mate, I'm going to go to contract fairly quickly, so long as I've got selection specifications. Now, understand, and most of you guys will know this, the contract is made up of the agreement, the specifications, and any of the associated plans or drawings, elevations, etc. Okay, so just don't think, well, the contract is just made up of a signature and a payment schedule. No, what forms part of all that is your specifications. That's an important part, and obviously all your plans. Now, side note, as you go on, if you go on to build, you got to make sure that anytime there's a variation or a change order, that change order becomes a legally binding document, because you've adjusted the contract terms and conditions, let's say, or you've adjusted the scope or the completion date or all the above, right? And then, of course, you get to blow into your construction. And so that's where we're going. We've got a start date that's about 60, 70 days from today. So this is going to take me 2 weeks. This will pretty much be happening simultaneously to this. And then I need about 2 weeks to do pricing and final proposal. And then we'll start, then I'll basically lead that into contract. So guys and gals, I hope that clarifies a bit for you. If you haven't had that, compartmentalized, or you haven't got those segments or steps built into your sales process, which you should have documented, then hopefully that makes it pretty clear. This is what we do for lead management. In between here, obviously, we've got, I'll just turn my back to you for a second. We've got design goes in here just for the record. Okay, that goes in there. And once we've got confirmation, all of that's in order, then we can go to selections and that process as well. If you've got any questions, reach out, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. If you want to chat with me quickly, I offer a complimentary coaching session for 30 minutes. Just did one a couple of days ago. Feel free to jump in there, book a consultation, hit that button. If there's no room in my calendar, hit me up on email, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com, and I'll try and rearrange some things, make some space. Let me know your time zone and kind of what time suits you, and I'm happy to accommodate. Other than that, get across B for B, VIP, answer the 3 questions. If you're a good sort, that's a good community where I want the builders chatting with each other. I need to have that chit chat on a regular basis. I'm sure we've got something in our minds right now that go, and this is when I sit down with clients, I'm like, what problem are we solving today? You've got to ask yourself that question all the time. What is the greatest problem on my plate right now, and how do I resolve that? What's the cure? What's the remedy? Why is there a gap? What's the cause? And then start thinking about that, as far as, building the business, because you will not scale a business until you are in control, because most of the guys and gals that I speak to are in a state of chaos, and you cannot scale a business even if it's organized chaos, okay? You've got to be able to do more, you've got to be able to do it better, and you've got to be able to use the human resource at your disposal to help you make that happen. 80% is acceptable. Anything else? No? Yes? If you've got any questions and you're on YouTube, drop them in the comments. If you've got any other comments or other questions, feel free to email me. I hope that helps. Go build a kick-ass business. See you in the next episode. Cheers.